What's up guys, Landon here from the Full-Time Filmmaker team, and since Parker is on vacation, he asked me to tackle this week's video. So today I'm going to be showing you my top 5 tips to shooting product videos. Now before we jump into our 5 tips, let me first tell you about the product that we're actually going to be working with. So this is a pre-workout powder from a company that my buddy started called Alpha Theory. I've done some promo videos for them in the past, usually just showcasing the product in action at the gym with different fitness models. And even though those videos have done really well, we wanted to put together a product video in its purest form with simple camera movements and shots that really show off the details of the physical product that you'd be receiving in the mail if you were to go and order it online. By the way, if you're more interested in videos like this that showcase a product in action, we have several different job shadows inside our paid course, Full-Time Filmmaker, where you can follow us along and see our entire process for putting together these types of videos. So I'll drop a link below in case you want to check that out. All right, tip number 1 is to do some pre-planning. Now we already know that this video is going to be used on paid advertising platforms like Facebook and Instagram, which means the video needs a strong beginning that can quickly captivate our audience, and then a strong ending that encourages the viewer to then click on the learn more button and potentially place an order. Now my pre-planning process goes something like this. First, I find the perfect song, and as any filmmaker knows, this process can sometimes take even more time than the actual shooting and editing of the video, but it's absolutely crucial that you find the right one. Music choice can often make or break the final video, so take your time on this one. The second part of my pre-planning process is brainstorming different shots that I think would work well with the music and complement the product that we're showcasing. Usually I'll isolate myself in my office and then play the song that I found on repeat and just kind of take my time imagining the environment, the lighting, the camera movements, and so on. Then once I have my thoughts on paper, I move on to the third part of the pre-planning process and organize a concrete shot list. My shot list for this specific video looks like this. Nothing too complicated, just the basic shots with enough detail in their descriptions that'll help me recall how I imagined them while brainstorming. I also like to specify which camera and lens would work best for each shot. That way I'm not fumbling around for the right equipment while shooting. All right, now that the pre-planning is done, we can move on to tip number 2, which is to determine the setting or environment where we want to showcase our product. Now, every good brand or product has a certain look or a style that it tends to follow. For Alpha Theory, that's usually a darker matte black, moody setting, and that's the look we're going to be emulating today. Now, it's important to make sure that a brand's identity stays consistent. For example, if we were to put this product anywhere other than a dark, moody setting, it'd look a bit mismatched and not really fit into any of the other content that the company uses to promote itself. Now, this isn't always the case, especially if you're introducing something completely new that's meant to stand out from the rest of the product line, but in this case, that's not what we're trying to do. Now, the main environment that I've thrown together for this product is actually super simple. It consists of a backdrop, which is just a dark fabric with a brick design that I got off of Amazon for around 20 bucks, and then a couple of acoustic foam panels that I found lying around the office. You can obviously use something a little bit more professional, like a black cloth or a dark tabletop, but I saw these, set them up, and they work perfectly, so I just kind of stuck with it. Now, the last piece to the puzzle in setting up this environment is plexiglass. This stuff is great for creating those subtle reflections. I just kind of laid it over the top of those acoustic foam panels, so as you can see, when I set the product down, there's a nice clean reflection. The secondary environment that we used for this shoot was actually in the bathroom of our office because there's a shower in the corner, so it wouldn't make a mess when we did the shots that involved pouring the pre-workout liquid out from the shaker bottle. Now for this setting, I taped a black background to the wall so we could kind of match the other moody shots that we'd already filmed in the main location. Now these setups would be nothing without lights, which leads to our third tip, proper lighting. Now keep in mind that different products will require different types of lighting. For example, one of our students, Austin Paul, just made an awesome product video for a brand of whiskey. Now if you just shine the light directly on that whiskey bottle, you'd actually lose the amber glow of the liquid, so you need to shine the light from the back so that it amplifies the contents of the bottle. Our product is a bit different though, so for this, I just set up the main environment with a 4-point lighting setup. There are tons of different lighting setups that you can use for product videos, and it's ultimately determined by the product that you'll be shooting and what lighting makes it look its absolute best. That being said, feel free to use our setup as a template, but you might find that your product looks better with a different lighting setup. Now to really isolate our products and have full control over the lighting, we turned out all the lights, then started building our lighting setup from there. Now first we wanted to put some emphasis on the height of the bottle, so we added a tube light on each side. Tube lights work really well with tall, slender objects, especially bottles, so I definitely recommend using those if you have the option. Second, we added our key light so that the label on the bottle would pop just a little bit more and not be hidden in the shadows. I also threw on a honeycomb grid so the light would be a bit more isolated directly on the product and not bleed too much onto the backdrop. Lastly, we set up a spotlight that could shine directly onto the back of the bottle and kind of separate it from the backdrop. This adds a nice rim to the edges of the bottle and the lid and really completes the setup. Now, most of the time you'd want at least one light on your backdrop, but it really depends on the overall look of your video. Since we were going for that moodier look, I didn't think the backdrop needed anything, but your case may be different. Also, when we added the mangoes and started setting up the final shot with the shaker being slammed down, we realized that we'd need another light so that our pre-workout bottle would be properly lit and the shaker bottle once it came into the frame. For this, we brought in another little spotlight so you could clearly see the Alpha Theory logo on the bottle. All right, tip number 4 is adding special touches that are specific to your product. Now, since the flavor of this pre-workout is peach mango, I went to the store and bought some mangoes so we could add that to the scene for a couple of shots. I know it's pretty obvious, but I think this helps the viewer visualize the flavors that they could expect if they were to drink the product. Also, I would have gotten peaches, but I guess they're out of season, so we just had to stick with mangoes. Either way, I love how this looks because it adds a lot more contrast to those shots with the mango color bouncing off of the deep black reflections, and I just think it looks awesome. Also, since our product is a drink, we obviously need to show a lot of condensation and give the impression that it's a cold, crisp beverage. We did a few shots without any condensation, and even though it looks pretty good, it looks way better simply because you'd expect a beverage to have water dripping down the sides. So to do this, we actually didn't use water. An industry secret is to use glycerin, which you can find in a pharmacy. Now, this is just a clear fatty oil that looks like water, but it has a slightly thicker consistency so it doesn't just drip down whatever you spray it on. It'll stick to it for the most part, similar to a natural condensation that you'd see on a cold drink. Another special shot that we added was this macro shot of the pre-workout flowing through a shaker bottle. I saw this in Austin's video and we thought it was super creative, so shout out to him for the inspiration. But to make this work, I actually had to saw through the bottom of a clear shaker bottle so we could slide the probe lens through and have a big enough opening for pouring in the drink. Now, I'll talk more about that shot in tip number 5, which is shot variety. Now, this tip basically encompasses all of the different camera movements, angles, and focal lengths that we use to capture a variety of shots that can showcase the product in a creative and flattering way. So for camera movements, we use just a couple of different tools. First, we set up a slider perpendicular to the table for those smooth push-in camera movements. Now, with a tripod head mounted on the slider, I was able to tilt the camera up and down if I needed to reframe the shot as I moved closer or further away from the product. Second, I mounted the camera on a normal tripod, then set the product on a turntable, which gives you this smooth rotation. Now, we got this one on Amazon, so we'll drop a link down in the description if you want to check it out. For focal lengths, we used 3 different lenses. First was the Sigma 85mm f1.4. This focal length is easily one of the most flattering for filming both people and products. If you compare the bottle shot on an 85mm to a 24mm, it just looks so much more natural. Second focal length was the Canon 100mm macro. This lens was great for getting those tight macro shots of the product's label and other little details. Lastly, we had the Laowa 24mm probe. This lens came in handy for the close-up, like the ending shot where the camera flies above the mangoes and then the shaker bottle is slammed down, as well as this shot of the liquid flowing through the shaker bottle. Definitely a unique lens, so we'll drop a link below if you want to check that out. All right, I know that some of you watching this video probably want to get a quick look at the editing process, so I figured I'd sit down and at least show you my favorite shot and kind of break it down a little bit. Now, honestly, there was not a lot of work put into the editing process of this video. I'm a big believer that if you put in the work to pre-plan and shoot clean images straight out of camera, you won't need to correct very much in your editing. That being said, my favorite shot has got to be the one of the pre-workout bottle with the condensation dripping down the side. We actually shot this one static, so the camera was just sitting on a tripod with no movement. Then in post, I added some subtle keyframing on the position, scale, and rotation. Now, what this does is it adds a little bit more of an engaging movement to your video. And when you add a similar movement to all of your shots in a sequence, it really just pulls you in and keeps the flow of the video moving. By the way, for those of you who are wondering, the second screen I'm using is the ScreenPad Plus on the Asus ZenBook Pro Duo that we showcased in our 10 tips to 10x productivity in Premiere Pro video from a couple weeks back. Now, we already gave a full review of this laptop, so obviously I'm not going to go into a lot of detail here, but this touchscreen is easily my favorite feature ever on a laptop because I can just throw my timeline right there on the bottom. Plus, this computer just has incredible specs, so Premiere Pro, After Effects, Photoshop, everything you want to run runs smoothly. But anyways, I'll drop a link below if you want to check it out. All right, besides that subtle camera movement, I did throw on a color correction, and people always ask what settings I adjust when coloring a clip, and lately I've been adding just a touch of blue in the shadows down here, then really punching that contrast, pulling up the whites, and then pulling down the highlights. So now if I toggle this, you can see the before and after. Now, the last aspect of this clip is the sound design. I honestly browsed all over just trying to find that perfect juicy water flowing sound effect, and then finally I stumbled across a clip titled Intestines or something gross like that, and it actually worked pretty well. Now, hopefully I didn't ruin the video for you, but it just goes to show that sometimes the sound effect that works the best is the one that you'd expect the least. Well guys, that pretty much wraps up this shoot. Hopefully this video was able to steer you in the right direction for your next product video. I'll also be putting together an editing breakdown for this video, which is one of over 300 videos inside our full course, Full-Time Filmmaker, where we help filmmakers from all over the world go from knowing nothing about filmmaking to becoming professional full-time filmmakers. Now, even if you're not a rookie, this course will still teach you new techniques, help you brush up on old ones, and also connect you with a community of over 10,000 filmmakers just like you. We also have a completely free 1-hour filmmaking training where we give you our top 10 tips to creating cinematic videos. So links to both of those will be in the description below. Again, that pretty much wraps it up. Thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. And if you have any further questions, please let us know. What's up guys, Landon here, and in this video I'm going to be breaking down the product shoot from the YouTube video that we posted a couple weeks back. Now luckily this video is only 20 seconds, so this should go pretty quickly, but I promised that I'd come in and break down each individual shot, so that's what we're going to do. Now as you can see here, the first clip that we have is nested. I'm going to go ahead and drag this up so we can actually see what we're looking at. So there are a few things happening in this clip. I'm going to go ahead and open up that nested sequence so we can see exactly what's going on. So right here, the reason it's nested, first of all, is the original clip that I have. At the very end, there's a little bit of a speed ramp, so it speeds in just a tiny bit. What that does is it just kind of helps the flow of the video. So I have that speed ramp going on. I went ahead and I nested it, and then we got this right here. And then I added a little bit of a zoom right there, a digital zoom. So you can see right here that these keyframes, they start at 100, positioning and everything, and then as time goes on, scale goes in and we reposition just a tiny bit so that the framing is perfect. And I do that again just to add a little bit more dimension, a little bit more motion happening in the clip. Also, you'll notice this black video layer right here on top. Now, the reason this is there is because if I turn it off, for example, you can see these white strips on the side, and that's just because the background that I had, it wasn't big enough. So what I did is I added that black video and then I went ahead and I created a mask to go around the edges. I feathered it a little bit and it's actually animated so it moves with the video. And I did that because I wanted the intensity of the video to be at its maximum. I didn't want anything distracting you from that darkness and then that isolated light directly on our product. So that's the reason I did that. If we look closely at the color grade right here, Lumetri Color, you'll see that I did a pretty standard color grade. It's probably not showing exactly as it should because we are using an Apple display. And as you know, Apple and Premiere Pro, they kind of fight each other. So the colors aren't completely accurate, but you get the idea. It's kind of a standard color grade. And then when you go in, you'll notice that I did add that vignette, and that vignette again helps isolate the light and it helps you focus only on the product. Other than that, these are my basic settings. If you want to pause it and you can kind of try that out on your own clip, you're more than welcome to do that. I also added a little bit of a LUT. This is the Parker Walbeck Cineprint LUT. It's free in the course if you want to check that out. So yeah, those are my basic settings as you can see right there. A little bit happening in the curves just because of the mangoes and that color. I needed it to pop a little bit, but nothing crazy. All right, moving on now to the second clip. All right, this one was on the turntable, and again, you'll see really quickly that I am adjusting the position and the scale. We are zooming in right here just to add a little bit more dimension and depth. Same color grade, I believe. On to the next clip, we have not only position and scale going, but we also have a rotation keyframe happening. I thought the position and scale was getting a little bit old, so I wanted to add just a little bit more dimension to this clip, and I think it looks really awesome. So there's that one. Again, the same color grade. Right here, we have the pre-workout being poured from the shaker spoon thingy. And again, scale, position, rotation happening right here, and we got the liquid being poured out. Again, the exact same thing. There's no speed ramps on any of these, by the way. It's just that scale and position and rotation for a couple of them. I think that just doing that helps the video flow together. You don't always need to use a speed ramp. I think that just those 2 or 3 things are enough. Moving on now to this clip. Looks like I nested it. Let me look and see why. It's probably because of a speed ramp. Let's see, yep, speed ramp right there. It's nested again. It's kind of a sloppy, yeah, I don't know why I nested that one, but you can see that I did speed ramp at the very end of that clip. Just a touch. And then if we go back, you can see that the reason I nested it was so I could do the position and scale keyframing once again. Moving on to the next clip, got that simple push-in shot of the pre-workout powder bottle. Once again, it's nested. Let's see why I nested it. Wow, I nested this 3 times. Sometimes I do things and I don't know why I do them, but I do. Let's see. Oh, interesting. A little sloppy, but I did have a slight speed ramp going into this one at the very beginning, and that slows down. This one is slowed down to 40%. Oh, look at all these nested sequences. And then finally, when we get back right here, I speed ramped the beginning again, and then I speed ramped the end. Like that. I apologize, a little bit sloppy on that one. You definitely don't have to nest your sequence as many times as I did. I'm not sure why I did that. Maybe I was just hesitating and I was just trying out a bunch of different things. I don't know. We got that speed ramp down, and it looks like at the very end on this one, I actually added a fast blur at the very end. You'll see these keyframes right here. The reason I did that fast blur like that is because we're going into that macro shot inside the shaker bottle, and the liquid actually covers the lens, so it's really blurry. So I thought, how can I connect these 2 clips a little bit better? And by adding that blur, it makes it more of a seamless transition. It's not perfect, obviously, but it works. It flows really nicely. So for example, if I did turn off that fast blur, here's the hard cut. It works, but I do think with that fast blur, it just kind of completes that transition a lot better. All right, moving on now to the next clip right here, macro shot. It looks like I am scaling in quite a bit on this clip right here. So we start at 100, and then it moves up. By the time we're at the end of the clip, it's at about 155. And also there is a touch of rotation happening as well. So let me look and see. This one is nested. Yep, once again, we do have a little bit of a speed ramp at the beginning of this clip. I should point out though, I don't think in the 2020 Premiere Pro version, I don't think you have to nest after you do a speed ramp and then you scale. I'm not completely sure on that. I'm still on 2019 because I don't trust 2020 quite yet. So if you're on 2019 and you do speed ramp, you do need to nest before you add the scale and repositioning and even warp stabilizer and all that stuff. Going back to the video, little rotation. And then we can open up this nested sequence so we can see, yep, we got a little bit of a speed ramp going on right there. Another nested sequence. Man, I was messy on this video. It goes to show that not every video is perfectly executed. So, okay, going back to the video, we do have some scale and positioning happening right here once again. So, and it starts about right here. You might have noticed just a little bit. It's kind of that vertigo effect where the camera is pulling backwards, but the lens is pushing inwards. So you kind of have a cool distortion effect happening. And the reason I did that literally is just for the ending frame, because I needed these logos right here to be perfectly positioned in the frame. So in order to do that kind of subtly, I added that vertigo effect, and I think it added kind of a cool dimension to the video once again. So right here we have the scale moving from 100 to 118 right here. Positions moving just a touch. The real trick here is the velocity. So if you open up this arrow right here, you can actually adjust the curves of that scale and how it's happening. So I adjusted that until it was happening at a nice smooth rate. But yeah, you can see we have that smooth anthill, pyramid, whatever you want to call it, that smooth motion happening. And now this next part is where I get the most questions. It's how I did that cool logo transition right here. Like that. This was actually completely done in Premiere Pro. No After Effects were used. Like I mentioned, I had to frame that last shot so that the bottle and those logos were perfectly positioned in the center of the frame. And then what I did is I grabbed a PNG file of those Alpha Theory logos and I kind of stacked them on top of each other. And then what I did is I grabbed those PNG logos and I just placed them exactly where they are here in the frame on the bottle. If we zoom in a little bit here, you can see there is a cross dissolve happening. I do a cross dissolve because it slowly transitions those PNG logos into the shot. If you didn't have those cross dissolves, it would be a really hard hit and it wouldn't feel nearly as smooth. And then each of these logos have a position keyframe happening. So right here, we go from whatever the position was when I was placing them on the bottle. And you can see that it slowly changes position until they all come together directly in the center of the frame. And then once each of those logos comes together, we end with just one single logo right here. And to kind of help the combining of those logos be a little bit more smooth, what I did on this one, I added a fast blur right here. So it is just a touch blurry right when they combine, and then you can see that it slowly smooths out and it gets sharper. So what I used was a fast blur effect, and then once again, I just keyframe that blurriness to go from 117 down to 0 right here. So that was the trick on the animation side of things. But now we can move on to the sound design, because that is just as important as the video itself. Let me go ahead and expand this. You can see all the different layers of audio that I have down here. Since it's such a short video, there wasn't like a million clips, but you can tell that by layering the video, you add a lot more dimension to it. So actually, I'm going to go ahead and play that video back with no music and just the sound effects. So as you can see, we do have the base audio track on our first layer right here. And then below that, I have all of our sound effects going on. So you can kind of connect the dots between each shot. There's usually a little bit of a transition, like whoosh effect happening, you know, and then when the water is pouring, you can hear that water sound effect going on. It's pretty easy to connect the dots why I use certain sound effects, but hopefully you can see that by layering the audio, it creates an entirely new dimension and it just makes a more dynamic video. But for these sound effects, I used Soundstripe. We have a Soundstripe premium account, so we get music plus we get all of their sound effects, and so that's where the majority of these sound effects were sourced from. But that is the basic breakdown. Let me know if I'm missing anything. As you can see, I'm opening up this video for the first time in a few weeks, so it's definitely possible that I'm missing something, but I'm pretty sure I went over everything. So thanks for watching, and if you guys have any further questions, please let us know.